Yo, what's going on, guys? Dr. Schwartz here. Welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be making a different kind of video, something I've kind of wanted to make for the last couple of weeks, months. So what I'm going to be making here is a skill card tier list video for all the PvE classes in Horde and Escape. So kind of want to draw some inspiration from some other guys on YouTube that have made similar videos, like Turner Burner, Cherry Gwent, Hollow Strife. They've done similar PvE tier list videos. What I wanted to do was sort of rank the skill cards for each class from, S tier, top tier to like an F tier, bottom tier sort of list. I'm going to be using tiermaker.com. Yeah, so how I'm going to do this is I'm going to break it down into 8 videos. So instead of doing an individual video for each class, I'm going to be doing class type. So I'll do all the assault classes, a tier list for all 5 of those in Horde and Escape, and then a tier list for all of the tank classes in Horde and Escape. There'll be 2 videos there, and then another tier list of all the support classes in Horde and Escape, and then a tier list for all the promotional classes in Horde and Escape, even though there isn't a lot of cards there. But yeah, so this is something I want to do for a while. I know Gears 5 is 3+ years old, and we don't know when the next game is coming, so just trying to keep the content going for you guys. So I'm going to get started here. We're going to do a skill card tier list for the assault classes in Horde, and let's get right into it. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Feel free to comment any opinions and stuff like that, and let's get started with the Blademaster skill card tier list in Horde. So you got all the skill cards down here at the bottom, and I'm going to just organize them by category. So we got excellent cards at the top, above average, average, below average, then cards that are do not use or semi-useless in the mode. So let's get started here. Probably going to just work my way down to top, bottom to top. So in Horde, any of the Venom cards you're not going to really need. So Venom Blade you don't really need because you're going to have extra bleed damage perk. That gives you bleed damage once you perk it. You're not going to need Venom Resistance because there's no Venom in Horde. Same thing. A couple other cards that aren't very good here. Banana Clip. Extra Talon ammo could be okay in Escape, but in Horde you really don't need it. It is a melee class, so it's really just a filler card. Deep Pockets, again, another pistol card. It's one of the low level cards. Again, you really don't need it. The only time you really ever equip it is if you're low level and you're leveling up the class for the first time. And then the final card I probably put in do not use for Horde is Brutal Claw. It has some benefits in some maps and some mutators, maybe like a long range gambit type of thing. You could use it, but this is a melee class, and you do spawn with a claw, but you're really going to be focusing on meleeing and CQC combat, so this is not a card I would recommend. So some below average cards, I would probably put some of the other low level cards, like a Efficient Executioner I'd probably throw in there. It is somewhat useful in Escape, but in Horde, if you have an engineer, you don't really need to worry about dropping an ammo pouch after every execution. There are multiple classes where executions benefit the class or the team better, so this is not really a card that I'd ever use, other than if it's one of the only few cards that you got. Another card that's okay, but I'd still probably put it in below average, is On the Flank, just because in Horde there are not a lot of maps where you would be shooting at things where enemies aren't facing you. Maybe like Allfather's Arena, or if you're doing double-sided version, and maybe there's like a long-range gambit or a double headshot mutator, maybe you want to try playing Blademaster sort of in a different version or a different way you can run that card. I just think there are a lot better options. Probably also throw Ambush in here as well. It is a gold card, but not all gold cards are created equal. So kills from behind reduced cooldown by 30 seconds. The ultimate's 5 minutes. It's base time for most classes. If you do enough bleed damage with the perk and all the other bleeding cards, you really don't need this skill card. A little more beneficial in Escape, but even for Escape, I wouldn't. It's not that great. Moving on to average skill cards for Blademaster and Horde, I probably put Shock Shield there. Stim is great. Stim is always great. Gives you health gate. Allows you to sponge a shot before you're able to go down. 250 Stim's okay. I think what's more valuable than having immediate Stim when you use your ultimate is having damage resistance and having health regeneration. So that's why the cards associated with that are ranked higher. Solid beginner card, intermediate card, but definitely not top tier for Blademaster. Probably throw in Nasher Mastery in there too. Again, too situational. You already have an Infiltrator class that can take advantage of Nashers anyway. If you want to play different meta or a different version of the Blademaster, you can throw this in. But again, even if you have close range gambit for your Horde dailies or something like that, you're better off running Blade Dancer or Brawler or even both, combined with the bleed to do a lot more damage. I probably put mid-range deflection here near too. Damage resistance card's always nice, just that this one is between 5 and 10 meters, so it's good for sponging sort of mid-range shots. Good in certain situations. Not a card I'd always run in my starting 5 or top 5 cards, but in certain situations, certain meteors, certain maps, certain setups, I could probably justify running it. Above average cards, I probably put in Brawler. Now this is normally a card I wouldn't normally run. The Blademaster you can do just fine without it. Still a great card, gives you increased melee damage. Some base melees do 750 damage, so this will bump it up to 1725, I believe. Yeah, so Brawler just gives you increased melee damage from the start. You do 1725 melee damage per melee. Great card to run. The reason I'd always wouldn't run it is sometimes you want like regular melee damage, and sometimes I'd prefer like to have a short range deflection instead of Brawler, just because I can deal with having less melee damage but having more regeneration ability. So that's sort of why it's not at the top. Probably put in Blade Dancer here as an above average as well. Probably one of the better gold cards that they added in Operation 5, I think. So what it does is it's like a towering damage card, so it increases your melee or bleed. Each melee or bleed kill gives you 50% extra damage for 15 seconds. So if you get 4 kills in quick succession, you can get up to 200% damage for a brief period of time. Very useful on heavy Scion, heavy DR1 waves, boss waves. Kill a couple of juvies, leeches, small enemies, drones, and then run up to a snatcher, matriarch, whatever, and you go to town. You can do triple damage for a brief period of time when the card is maxed. And then the final tier is excellent, which I would probably put all 4 of these cards. So Energy Surge, again, one of the top cards for this class in Horde, of course. Gives you 6 stim every half second. Your energy tap, as long as you're within 10 meters of it, and it also duplicates if you're within 10 meters of multiple taps, you get stim twice as quick, so it's great. Stim gives you health gate, so you can sponge a boom, you can sponge a lot of things, Warden attacking you, certain things you can't sponge, like torque bows from Therons, like those things down you no matter what. You do have sort of, if you're near a tap, you do have an additional immunity, I would suppose, running that card. Short range deflection I run as well, just gives you extra damage resistance within 5 meters, 32% ballistic. So that's the difference between sponging an extra claw bullet or 2, sponging a couple extra hammer burst bullets, sponging an extra Nasher bullet, close range. This card itself is not going to let you sponge a boom, but if you're running short range deflection and it works with your passive and you're bleeding a lot of enemies with your ultimate, this card can give you the difference between dying from an explosive and not. So it's very useful. I always run Shock Chain just because the bleed from the Electro Blade can transfer to enemies within 5 meters of you, and then if there's an enemy within that range, it's going to transfer all the bleed everywhere. It just makes the class extremely powerful, extremely fun to play. It can also transfer to enemies that are flying, so one of the weaknesses for the class is like you can't really do a lot of damage to like flying enemies, but if there's like a Guardian or a Sentinel flying low enough and like a drone is shock chained and it's close enough, you can hit that Sentinel or Flock or whatever is flying. And then Thrill of the Hunt is just basically, I think it's just a mandatory card. You need damage resistance near healing enemies. It also works with the passive really well. So the more enemies that you're bleeding, the more you can heal, and then I think your passive is that you heal 50% from a bleed or a melee kill. So that works on top of that, and then all the other 3 cards help as well. And Thrill of the Hunt does not have to be your own bleeding. Like it doesn't you can heal from bleeding by standing near bleeding enemies. If like a Demolitions or a Tactician using explosives and bleeds an enemy near you, is really good for that. And that's pretty much my tier list for the Blademaster for Horde. Yeah, and then let's move on to the next class. Alright guys, so this is the Demolitions tier list video for the skill cards in Horde. I'm going to rank it sort of bottom to top, so the cards I wouldn't recommend at all are Gambit, Grenade Satchel, Inspired. So Demolitions really has one playstyle, and that's just boom shot, GL, spam your ultimate, and blow everything up. They did add these grenade cards, which are okay, but they're really just not up there DPS wise. There's another class that takes more advantage of the grenade card, so I wouldn't recommend ever using them for the demolitions. The rest of the skill cards that it offers are a lot better. Inspired is just way too specific of a card, and frankly, to put it, way too not useful. It requires 32% damage resistance, which is already far too low for any high difficulty, and you got to have a veteran, and they have to be within 10 meters of you. Just far too many restrictions to be useful. Some below average cards are probably put as good kill. It's solid for classes that need ammo out in the field, so if you demolition skills an enemy that's within a few meters of their teammate, there will be an ammo pouch dropped. So classes that are CQC, like a Nomad execution build, or a Blademaster, Striker, Protector, Infiltrator, they could take advantage of this. Especially if you don't have an engineer, you can run this card. It's okay. It's a solid beginner card, but the rest of the cards offer more. Launcher Mastery, probably put it below average. It's solid beginner card. Gives you an extra large and active reload bar. Once you're learning how to play Horde and learning the weapons, it could be useful, but you really don't need. Once you learn, how to reload the GL and the boom and the drop and those things, you don't really need the card anymore. Average, I probably put Concussive Strike. It is funny to watch once you use your ultimate to see all the enemies that survive just sit there and get stunned for 11 seconds. Could be useful if you're getting overrun by something. I don't believe it works really on the bosses, which is unfortunate. If it did, I'd probably have it higher. It is a fun card to experiment with, though. Lancer GL Mastery, it's average just because, again, it requires some Lancer GL. Although this card does say less recoil and increased headshot damage. I believe it also works with other assault rifles, which is slightly better than intended. Once you get used to the weapons, pretty much all the assault rifles don't have a lot of recoil. And again, 13% headshot damage is just far too little to justify running it. The less recoil is nice, so that's why I kind of have it as an average card. But then again, you're not going to really be shooting a lot of bullets. You're going to be shooting rockets and projectiles, really. So good for taking down small enemies, juvies, leeches, some drones, some magos like that, but there are better options for sure. Above average, I put Officer's Prerogative here. Definitely a card in my top starting 5. Gives you additional artillery, fires 6 additional rounds on your marked targets. So when you use your ultimate and mark a boss, it will drop 1 set of strikes for the ultimate, and then another set of strikes on anything that you mark. Definitely good for that. Definitely a great wave clearing card. Bullet Boost, one of the better gold cards that they added. Operation 5, extra ballistic damage once you get explosive bleed kills for a certain period of time. So the way I would use this, I'd use this a lot on maps that are even stronger enemies or even tougher enemies, or there's like more health mutator or something like that, right? I take off one of the skill cards and put this on. So the way you want this to work is you want like the boom shot or kill four or 5 juvies or something like on a boss wave, kill some small enemies, then use the ultimate, spray and pray GLs everywhere, and you'll get 200% extra damage for up to 15 seconds. That does taper off. There is a cooldown for that, but definitely a great damage boost on boss waves, on Horde maps where the mutators are extra health. Definitely run a card like that for it. Custom Lancer GL is above average too, just simply because the reason I don't have it at the top is just you don't really spawn with a GL anymore. You used to, so once you get the GL, the extra damage is fine, but I think you can buy a GL from the fab because there's no enemy that drops it. 60% extra damage is nice, but the perks kind of make up for running this card, but it's still a solid card. And then the excellent cards are the remaining 4. So custom boom shots, just kind of obligatory. You spawn with the one, you do extra damage with it out. You pretty much want to load your lockers with it, so you'll pretty much need that. Spotter support, I think, is just too useful of a card for it to not be anything other than excellent. Fires 7 additional rounds on melee marked targets. So it's similar to Officer's Prerogative, except that it fires an additional set of rounds on targets that your teammates mark instead of you. Pairs really well with Tactician's Interrogation. Confirmed Kill is excellent as well. It used to probably be average before they changed it to where now you get 25 seconds of ultra recharge every kill, and it used to be like 12 or something. So you can get, if you mark enough enemies and kill enough enemies with your artillery strikes, it will recharge your ultimate, and it's kills with the artillery strikes. So if you bleed something from the artillery, it doesn't count. It has to be a kill for it. But still very good card to run. And then obviously Razor Hail you need. Explosive bleed damage is what you really need. So class can't really do anything without it. You unlock it at level 12, so once you get that card, you are good to go. And this is pretty much how I rank the Demolitions in Horde. Again, the excellent cards are pretty much cards you'd always run. Above average are cards you'd interchange here and there. And then the rest of the cards are just sort of beginner cards, cards I never use. So, and let's move on to the next class. Alright guys, so let's start the skill card tier list for the next assault class, which will be the Infiltrator. So the skill cards start down at the bottom, and I'm going to rank them again. Excellent, all the way to do not use. So let's get started here. I'm going to just rank the classes, sort of just top to bottom. So I'm going to put my skill cards that I think are the top ones. I'd probably put Laceration. Pretty much need that. That gives you shotgun hits within 5 meters cause bleeding damage. And then Reaper, shotgun kills give you 50% stim, so 2 shotgun kills with either body shots or bleed will give you full stim. Enhanced stim, I think, is really great. Damage resistance when you have stim is what makes this one of the most tankiest classes in the game. So those 3 I recommend running at all times for this class. Now, Blood Resonance, the reason why it's an above average, of course, it's an excellent card too, but the reason why is it just depends on having Laceration, of course. When you're running Infiltrator, make sure you have both. One card causes bleed damage, the other, this Resonance just makes the bleed damage even higher once you shoot the enemy again, once it's bleeding. Plus, you've got perks, which add shotgun damage and extra things to make this class really good. Simply just because this card requires another card, put it on above average. Stim batteries, similar reasoning. It's not as useful as enhanced stim, but having an additional 230% stim on top of the stim that you have on base health, we're talking almost 4 times as much health as a regular player, and you get, combining with enhanced stim, you get 60% resistance. That class can sponge a lot. So this is definitely a great card. And the good thing about stim batteries is that with Reaper, you only need 2 shotgun kills, which the shotgun or bleed, to give you full stim. So that's really nice. Doesn't matter on the level of the card at all. Average cards, how I put cloak batteries. So Infiltrator is one of the classes that do have 2 separate playstyles. The bleeding shotgun stim build is more dominant in terms of DPS, but the cloak, while they did nerf the cloak duration or the chain card, it is still a solid secondary playstyle, so you can run cloak batteries. Gives you additional duration, then of course combined with chain. Yeah, I mean the card probably was above average at one point, I'd say, but now it's just, since they nerfed it to where executing enemies extends cloak by 5 seconds. I don't think they changed the time down. I believe what they did is they made it to where meat shielding enemies and cloak did not recharge the ultimate duration, which is kind of unfortunate because that was very useful in certain situations, especially preventing teams from wiping. Custom Nasher, again, probably it's okay. I think with the 2 bleeds and the 3 stims, you do enough damage anyway to not justify running this, so I'd rather stay in the card slot. Below average cards, Healing Jolt, again, picking up energy heals for 100%. Gears 4 had a similar card, it was okay. The problem is, the healing time is so slow, so little, that the likelihood of you picking up power and then sponging something is rare. It's just not really worth running. Long reach is okay, below average again. Just the only real usefulness of this card is for the daily, or every time the operation resets, you get new medals. There's some medal for collecting 1,000,000 power, so this is probably what that's good for. You don't run into a beginner horde and just kill some enemies, pick up power from 6, 7, 8 meters away, whatever it is. It's good for that. Course escape is not useful, but definitely not the greatest in Horde. It could be solid card to run with the cloak build, but especially if you need like a Gears 4 type scout picking up power, but other than that, it's below average. And then the cards I wouldn't recommend are the other 4 at the bottom here. So Driven, 32% damage from explosives, that's just far too little to justify running. It's just a beginner card. Run it if you don't have any other cards to put. The stim and enhanced stim is far superior. 32% damage distance is not going to let you sponge anything. Any explosive down master, if it's, you need like 90% plus resistance to sponge, so that's just not enough. And there's nothing really to pair it with to make it okay. Overkill ammo capacity gives you 35% increased overkill. I think you get 20, so it goes from 20 to 27. Not really worth running, especially if you got a locker or an ammo box. Yeah, you should have plenty of ammo. 1 or 2 overkills and a Nasher or 2 is fine for the whole game. Overkill stock, again, not really a card you need. If you just know that you want to hold down the shot and then let go instead of spamming the trigger. We do have a video on the channel showing that, I believe, so not a card I'd run. The shotgun speed loader says it's okay, beginner card again, like it gives you a larger active reload window, but once you learn how to use the Nasher and the overkill, it's not a card you really need. That's pretty much the tier list for the skill cards on Infiltrator and Horde. Pretty much want to stick to the 2 bleeds and the 3 stims. The cloak cards are okay, and then the rest are kind of just filler. So yeah, let's move on to the next class. Alright guys, this is going to be a tier list on the Marksman class skill cards for Horde. Cards are at the bottom, alphabetical order. Excellent all the way to do not use. I'm going to rank them. Ambush is excellent. This is really what makes the Marksman super good. Extra basically double critical damage when targets have over 90% health. That's the main thing you gotta remember, is try to shoot enemies with full health or most of their health to get the advantage of this. Definitely a card that you want to run. It's just extra critical damage. Definitely a card you want to have. Long shot handling gives you 100% automatic reload on critical kills every time you get a headshot. You should get an automatic reload on your long shot. Sometimes it is buggy, but it is a great card. Just gets you in the rhythm of headshotting. Very good for that stuff. Explosive critical hit is great. Just max DPS. Critical kills give you splash damage. Really good in the ultimate. Really good outside of the ultimate. Just a great card to have. Some mutators may require you not running it, like a reduced explosive damage. You may want to take that card off. But in every other situation, it is fine. So definitely a top card. Moving on to above average skill cards for the Marksman, I would probably put Exploit Weakness. Gives you increased critical damage. It's just a base damage card. Not as great as like Ambush, but it's definitely one of the starting 4 or 5 cards you want to run. It just adds on to Ambush, so this is just base critical damage increase. The Ambush is also critical damage increase, but the enemies have to be over 90% health, which they should be in most situations, but very useful. Modified long shot, again above average. These are probably most likely a starting 5 cards you would run. Occasionally I swap out critical hit for like icy precision, but normally I'd run something like this. So this is just modified long shot, base long shot damage increase. You swap with one. That's pretty much what you're going to be using. I like icy precision. It used to not be super good, but now it's pretty good. It gives you freezing damage per active headshot with precision weapons. Very useful on boss ways. Freezing snatchers, meteorics. You can couple critical hits with the marks through the wall in your ultimate. You can freeze bosses, so the demo or the tact or whatever can take it out. I think it's like the Marksman's version of like stunning the boss. It's just useful in that situation for sure. Above average, I probably put critical parade here too. Extra critical hits extend the ultimate buff hit 25%. I think it's like 3 seconds every headshot you get in your ultimate, and adds 3 seconds. It's really good, especially you compare it with the veteran. Everyone knows, I think, about that veteran Marksman combo, which it's okay if you want to wipe out some waves. But even if you're not running a veteran Marksman combo, it's still a solid card. If you're on your A game and headshotting everything, you can easily take out the whole wave. So definitely a good card there. Average cards. So these are cards you wouldn't run I wouldn't run in a Horde game, but maybe if there's a situation, could run it. Counter snipe is just resistance to precision damage. It's okay, I guess, on like freezing sniper mutators or maps like that have shock snipers or something like that, it's okay, but it's again way too situational. Again, it's also way too little of a damage resistance for it to be anything above average. Steady hands average, I would say, just because if you're struggling sniping or you're new to it, it can really help you out. Also helps you out even if you're a good sniper on maps where there's a gunner with salvos or demo that's spamming GLs and your screen is shaking. You could run this to sort of neutralize that. So below average cards, patience, just way too situational. X-ray recharge is 210% faster while safe. So you have to not take damage for like 2 minutes or something, so that your ultimate charge is 3 times faster for the rest of its duration. Really not a card I'd ever run. Not a lot of situations where I'd use it. It's more, even in Escape, it's semi-situational on the one time I know, but again, not a card I'd run. Master Marksman, if you're a beginner with Sniper, have an active reload bar. It's useful. You're pretty much going to lose long shot Marksa. The M bar is just no. But yeah, and then below average or cards I would never use are the M bar cards. Just increased M bar ammo capacity and increased M bar damage for modified M bar. The M bar is just far too weak in comparison to the Sniper, the long shot. The only advantage the M bar has got is that an active M bar shot like stuns enemies for briefly, but that's it. It's not a card I would recommend. Pretty much stick to your long shot and your marks. Even your bolt talk's solid too. But yeah, this is the tier list for the Marksman. Yeah, and we'll move on to the last class of the assault classes, which is the Nomad. Alright guys, this is the last tier list video for Horde for the assault classes. So this is going to be the Nomad tier list rankings. So let's get started here. All the cards are A to Z at the bottom. The Nomad is a pretty versatile class that you can run sort of close range and long range with, so there's a lot of cards you can work with. Probably one of the most versatile in the game next to the Gunner. So let's get started. Do not use, I probably put Powdered Sprint here. It's just Healing Jolt with a different name. Picking up energy heals for 100%. It's just, there's not a lot of situations where you're going to be getting shot at the same time you pick up power. So I wouldn't recommend it. Some cards that are below average, I probably put in Precision Resistance. Far too situational. And then far too little damage resistance standalone. If you get shot by a sniper on Master within a certain distance anyway, it's going to down you. 32% damage resistance is not going to help. So I would recommend it. Nomad Armor. Again, running both of these cards together is solid, but running individually, they're not that great. Again, damage resistance, this is okay, at least because you have solid damage resistance within 15 meters. Again, 32% is not enough to sponge a boom or a rocket or a grenade, so below average for me. Average card, probably put Acceleration. This is just base damage increase at a long range, so I think over 15 meters you get extra damage, so that's very nice. Just extra Marksa damage, long shot damage, whatever. Rain Down is another card. 30% extra damage, but you have to be a meter above them. So this requires elevation. It's solid if you pair it with other damage cards, but as a standalone, it's a little too situational for it to be any higher. The next card is Intimidation. This is an interesting gold card. I think it's okay. It's basically when you headshot enemies within 5 meters of that target are in fear, which can be kind of annoying, but it's okay in certain situations. Maybe a Scion runs in the base and you headshot it and you're sort of able to recover from that situation if need be, but it's not a great card. It's okay. Not a card I run in my normal Nomad builds. Fear Samora increases the radius of fear by 6 meters, which is fine. I think the radius is already like 10 or something, or 5, I don't remember what it was. It makes the radius of the ultimate bigger. It's nice, but I'd probably put it higher if it could stack with other cards. It just doesn't stack with like Phase or those other versions of Fear. It's solid though. Nasher Proficiency, solid card. This card just has so much versatility. And I think it has solid, you can get solid ballistic damage with the long shot and the Marksa. I prefer that over the Nasher proficiency. You do spawn with one, it's solid, but I think the perks can kind of make up for it, so I think average is where it belongs. Above average, I'd probably put armored shot. This gives you bleeding damage when you have stim on any weapon, any ballistic weapon, so Nasher, it's really good. If you are out there meleeing, executing enemies out in the field, let's say you're playing close range Nomad, you put a Scion in Fear, shoot it in the back with a Nasher, and you get some bleed, so that's pretty good. You also get bleed on the Lancer GL rockets, so it could be useful on boss waves as long as you have stim, so that's really nice. I'd run this card for a close range Nomad. If you're running a long range build, you're not going to get a ton of great opportunity from that card simply because you are going to be losing stim too much, I think. So if you're running execution build Nomad, I'd recommend it for that. Lifeline is great as well. Super useful card for teammates. Anyone that kills an enemy that's in fear from the Nomad gets 50% stim. So that's just another thing that keeps the team alive, which is nice. Marksa Mastery, so that's just Marksa DPS, 70% extra damage, and active effects of the Marksa. If you're running a mid-range, long-range build, this is a solid card, especially paired with some of the other damage cards, like Acceleration and Rain Down. You can do pretty good damage. And it's a ballistic weapon, so you can also get bleed during the ultimate, during times when you have stim. Concussive rounds is pretty decent too. It's a little situational, but it's pretty good, I'd probably say. Not a card I run all the time, but it's definitely a good card. Stuns Boltox, can stun drones and some smaller enemies for 4 seconds. So when early Horde games, it's useful as long as you are shooting them in the head and you're close. I don't think there's a range on this, so this is cool. So you can headshot a drone or a Mongo, and they can stay stunned for a couple seconds, so other teammates can take advantage of it. It'd be better if you could stun larger enemies, but it's solid for what it does. Also forgot another card here to put in average. Terror. This extends the fear duration for 15 seconds. It's okay. Could be annoying to your teammates though for enemies to be in that fear that long, trying to chase after them. If you're getting overrun and you have a lot of Scions or large enemies in the base, this can be useful for those situations, so that's why I sort of put it as average, but it can get kind of annoying. So probably more geared towards escape situations, but it's okay in Horde. Excellent cards. Consecutive shot is great. Critical hits increase damage 32% up to 200%. So if you get 6 critical hits, so 6 headshots or 6 weak point hits, you can get 3 times damage for a sort of short period of time. That's really nice. With max stacks, you can probably one-shot Scions and stuff like that, like you would be able to as a Marksman. You don't have the same DPS as a Marksman in terms, but this card pretty much gets you on the same page of it, at least. Execution Shield, probably one of the strongest, probably one of the greatest new cards in the game, honestly. Just 100% damage resistance and max stim on every execution. Playing close range Nomad is really fun, because you can just chainsaw drones, put everything in fear, and take no damage. And then it's really also great if you've paired it up with the final 2 cards here, Phase and Menace. So Phase gives you fear when you're executing nearby enemies. Menace recharges your ultimate. So these 3 cards combined is a great build for close range Nomad. So you get 100% immunity when you chainsaw enemies. Enemies near you go in fear, and every time you chainsaw or execute an enemy, you get your ultimate back. Just excellent card, excellent build. This is a great class they added to the game. It has pretty good versatility, probably up there with Gunner. I think it's really solid. You can play Marksman, DPS, close range, or you can play long range. Close range, long range, mid range. There's solid cards that you can do. Run any build with. So this is the Nomad tier list for Horde. Thank you guys so much for watching. That'll conclude the tier list for the assault classes in Horde. Stay tuned. Next video we're going to be doing the tier list for the tank classes, so be on the lookout for that. Peace.